My name's Devin. This is Morgan Craven. Morgan's been at the church for 20 years now, and I'm a little bit newer. I've been at the church for just about 2 years. We recently got married, and then I started a new job profession. I've been at the sheriff's office for just about 2 years now.
We got married in the middle of COVID. It was July 2020. We had a very interesting time with that. I remember I was actually sitting out on the swing he made me in our backyard. I remember I was just sitting there and was like, Lord, I'm really struggling with what you want me to do with my life, because I want to make sure I'm in your will and I'm doing what you want me to do. And that night I actually took the pregnancy test and we found out we were pregnant. We were excited at first. I was excited. I was scared. When we had our first ultrasound, I was 6 weeks pregnant, and we found out that we were having twins then. And honestly, remembering that day, I was very angry. I said some mean things to God. It's just not what I had wanted, and I was basically throwing a fit. The day that I had them, their hearts were actually starting to drop a lot, so that's why I had to do a quick emergency C-section, because if not, they would have died.
They rushed Morgan back into the operating room, and they told me to stand outside of these double doors, and they would come get me within 15 minutes, and that 15 minutes felt like the longest 15 minutes of my life, and I just broke down in the hallway. Nurses and doctors were going in and out of the room, and I couldn't see them. I couldn't see my girls yet. I didn't know if she was okay or the girls were okay, because we already knew there was a problem with their heart rates dropping. And I just remember there in the hallway pleading to God that despite the way I had acted over the past 6 or 7 months, and the things that I had said out of anger at times, and the ways that I had resented this time of our life because of what I knew it was going to take from me. In the midst of all that selfishness, I just remember being in the hallway asking God to be there in that room with Morgan, and to have his hand and his favor over those doctors and nurses. And God met me there in that hallway, because I picked up my phone and I started reading Psalms 28, and Psalms 28:6 says, "Praise be to the Lord my God, for he's heard my cry for mercy. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me." And I knew in that moment that despite the chaos and everything going on in the hospital and around me, even though it felt like I was alone and it felt like she was alone in that operating room, that he heard me. He knew what we were in need of. His hand was over us and our situation, and he was meeting me and our needs where we were at. And it was such a humbling moment for me, and probably the first time since I'd heard the news that we were expecting, that I had given everything to God.
So we had them home for a week, and we were only letting grandparents and siblings over to see them, because, they're premature babies, so you don't want them to get sick. And that's, of course, what happened. We just called their pediatrician and asked her what we should do, and she told us we should take them to the emergency room. So we got everything together, took them there, and they did tests on them. And I will never forget when they said, "I think we should transfer them up to Roanoke." We literally could not do anything about the situation. Like, God had to take control, and he had to provide, and we had to just give it to him. And I remember they took my babies from me, and they put them in it was a NICU ambulance, and watching them just load them up in the ambulance, and they're in little NICU boxes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never wanted to see them in there again.
No, I think for both of us, we could agree that part of the unforeseen blessing in this was the trial itself and the circumstances. Even though it wasn't what we asked for and it wasn't what we chose, that's where we saw God the most. That's where God met us the most. That's how we experienced God on a deeper level. And even that day when we realized that they were taking our babies from us again, and they were going to be transferred back up to the hospital that we'd just gotten out of. It was really a moment where I felt like God was testing us. Like, okay, I've given you these girls, I've given you these gifts, and I've trusted you with them. Do you trust me with them again?
I'm thankful, and God has given us gifts in the form of our daughters, but also, like, you have to look at it a way that He's given us a gift in the form of, like, our suffering during the NICU and the PICU and everything like that, because I would not know Him better like I do if we hadn't experienced that.
And I think that when you think about an endless inheritance and what we receive when we're born into the kingdom of God, you have to consider your trials and what God's brought you through. And I think that that's how that plays a part in Maya and Arya's life, because He's delivered us from so many things, and they're not even old enough to walk or talk yet. And so there's going to come a time in their lives when they get to hear mom and dad talk about the God of yesterday, and the God that delivered them and saved mom and dad is the same God that's delivering and saving today. And then one day, if God should tarry, they'll have the opportunity to tell their kids, of that God of yesterday that's the same today, and that will be the same forever. And they'll be able to experience that inheritance as well. And so it's awesome that God's given us that opportunity to share, and not just an earthly inheritance, but a heavenly one.